Hello, this is John, your host of Mgtow is Freedom, self-appointed Professor Emeritus Hominis Mgtonius, and a faithful student of Mgtocrates, that ancient philosopher from Greece. There's a dichotomy out there. That is, there's two things going on, and both of them don't seem to work. So it has to do with our role as men and how we need to be Mgtow first and worry about women second. So I want to go back in time before the sexual revolution, back to the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, and so on. Sometime around the turn of the century, women used to go to their physicians, their gynecologists, their doctor, because they were suffering from, they wanted to call it a number of different things, but let's just say they were sexually frustrated to the point that they were very unhappy. They were depressed. They were upset. And the treatment was for hysteria. And so doctors would literally masturbate women as a medical practice. As a medical practice, they would masturbate them to orgasm to give them relief from their hysteria. You may or may not know that. It's a little bit of sexual medical history. And because of that, that condition that women had, sexual frustration, they invented that giant vibrator, one with a big ball on the end of it that they plug in the wall, and it'll, I think, basically shake a bridge to its foundations. But doctors, real physicians, invented that, modified it, made it work so that they could use that as a tool so they wouldn't have to manually do that. I think the very first case of carpal tunnel syndrome was some doctor from having to masturbate his female patients all the time. Now, there's a couple of really funny lessons in this. Number one, once again, it took a man to solve the problem and do the work, because for some reason, women couldn't do that for themselves. Right? Now, is it because if it was masturbation, they would feel guilty in some sexual manner? Most likely, religious beliefs notwithstanding, right? If they went to a doctor, it became a medical condition instead of a sinful preoccupation with their hand. But women would go there because they were sexually frustrated. And a lot of this does have to do with religious frigidity on the woman's part. Right? And that's the one side of this dichotomy. The other side is once they started finding sexual freedom, and then of course the birth control pill came about. Once that was handled, then women became promiscuous. They could get satisfaction with their hand or from a boyfriend or a toy, and they are still complaining they are not satisfied, that they can't be satisfied. That's the dichotomy. It's the catch-22 that men face. Couldn't please them before because they wouldn't allow themselves, and now they won't allow themselves because they have to deny men the satisfaction of knowing they're doing a good job. And of course, these women I'm talking about are feminists. Feminists, because they have to both get what they want and deny men. Now, it was my observation in my life that women who hate men get mad. They hate it when you pleasure them. They like the pleasure, but they hate it when you pleasure them. Because you have done something right. I did something right. And they cannot stand that. They can't stand it. Right? Anything that satisfies the man, and this is like feminism 101. Anything that pleasures the man, they cannot tolerate, they will not allow to happen, if at all possible. This has to do with pleasuring them or you getting sexual pleasure. They'll deny it as much as they can. And they push it to that edge where they go, is he going to go get it somewhere else or should I give it to him? Well, I'm not giving him enough, but I should push him a little more till it looks like he's about to fucking run for it, and then not. And women who are feminists, and again, anytime I say woman, unless I'm talking about unicorns, I mean feminists. They have to deny men satisfaction. They have to deny men pleasure. It's part of their control manipulation. They will control a man's sexuality to the point of destroying his libido. I don't know if it takes 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, but eventually they'll do it. They'll drive a man's libido into the ground, and then they'll go, boy, you can't get it up. What kind of man are you? And then they use that to just fucking hammer him down, right? Mine was trying it. I conquered it. Right, I realized what was going on. And I know all men do. And then that's when they end up cheating, isn't it? Isn't that what we're supposed to believe? That all men cheat? Well, how about all men have to get satisfaction when they feel the drive? And that's what prostitutes were for. Prostitutes, but they're made illegal at the same time that early feminists, second wave feminists in the teens, the 20s, they got prostitution outlawed in America, everywhere. Even underground prostitution was attacked. I don't want to use the term safe houses. There's a word for them. Houses of ill repute, right? A man house where there'd be a madam and there'd just be a house full of women for pleasure. What men would do is go there and get their needs met, then go home and take care of business around the house. But the woman's job at that time was to deny man pleasure, and they always have, right? And men have to take care of their business. So as we move into modern eras, I'm talking about 80s and then 90s, the problem became so great. And with prostitution completely dead, there's no outlet for men. The guilt and shame of having a mistress was foisted upon us. Right? It became dirty. Okay, if I can't have a prostitute, give me a mistress, right? So men had options. Prostitute or mistress, but someone is going to take care of my business. And feminist women denied it yet again. And so the next step, the guy's pulling his hair out. He says, what do I do? How do I get this handled? He goes to his shrink and he says, man, I am sexually frustrated by my wife. Can't have prostitutes. Can't have a mistress. What do I do? Right? And so the doctor says, well, I'll tell you what. Right? I think we're going to have to do this thing called sexual therapy. And the doctor would provide a woman on which and with which the man could satisfy himself. He could pleasure himself, and he could take satisfaction in knowing he pleasured the woman. And the woman was basically a medical instrument, a psychological medical instrument. She helped him relieve his pent-up frustration, his anguish, his suffering. And how long did it take for that to get destroyed? Oh, it became mainstream news reporting. Sexual therapy for men was called prostitution. Can you fucking believe that? Oh, now if you're a woman and watching this, great. I want you to watch this. Because you women deny men sex. Then you deny us prostitutes. Then you deny us mistresses. Then you deny us sexual therapy. Now, this is just, it shows the beautiful hypocrisy that women have. Right? Because we'll look back at history from this point at the dichotomy that women have. They started the early 1900s, the 20th century, with being masturbated by a doctor for the purposes of relieving sexual anxiety and frustrations. Now, the doctor doing that is not prostitution, it's a medical treatment. But a man receiving sexual therapy under the supervision and guidance of a psychologist, there we go, psychiatrist, thank you. That is prostitution. So what is left? That leaves sex bots, fembots. And they're coming. They have supermodel fembots right now, but they are not mechanical. You know, they're just basically very large Barbie dolls with synthetic vaginas. And women are furious about it. The idea of a robot to take care of a man's needs. And I'm talking about any need, any programmable need. Cleaning, cooking. How about just sitting there and shutting the hell up? Any of these things that a fembot could do, including sexually satisfying a man, it infuriates women to know that they can be replaced and a man can be satisfied with a robot like that. Why is that? Why can we be satisfied with that? Because our needs are simple. And that's basically it. We have simple needs. The world is complex enough without having to understand and cater and pander to a woman in your life who can't make up her mind, who can't be satisfied without sex or with sex, who can't be satisfied with no house or with a nice house. No matter what, they can't be satisfied because they are feminists. And there's something wrong with their heads. So that's the dichotomy I wanted to look at. How women got medical treatment for their frustration, but men can't. We can't get it from a professional or a girlfriend. We can't get it from under doctor's orders or with a robot. There's no way we can win. Now women, they can ride a Sybian, they can get a dildo, they can get a vibrator, right? They can do anything they want, and it's perfectly fine because they're hypocrites. And hypocrisy, in the most ancient of books, is looked at as, I would say, second to murder. Because it is stealing, it is theft, it is intellectual theft. It's intellectual destruction to be a hypocrite. And I call it that. I hate hypocrisy. I hate it. You know, if it's good for the gander, it's good for the goose. Right? But that's not how the gander sees it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Think about it. And anytime you start seeing a hypocrite, you know you're dealing with a woman who is being destroyed or is destroyed by feminist ideology. Remember, please thumbs up this video, subscribe. If you got it in you, pass this video on to friends, other men, married, old, young, single, doesn't matter. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Remember, you're the man. You have the penis, right? Mgtow is freedom. Professor Homitus Emeritus Mgtonius out.